Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the monthly live mineral webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the SMMP, and Blue Cap Productions. Tune in on the first Wednesday of every month and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Hello, welcome to Mineral Talks Live. Today is Wednesday, October 5th, 2022, and we are broadcasting to you live from Germany. That's right. This is the first time we've ever done the broadcast live from Germany or live from the EU, so we are happy that all of you can join us today. Mineral Talks Live is a mineral talk show that is designed to really get to know the major people in the mineral world, whether they be curators, curatrix, collectors, miners, researchers, dealers, media people, artists. That's what we do. We sit here and we get to know them. We come to you live every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. My name is Brian Sobota, the president of Blue Cap Productions, and together with my co-hosts, Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP. We are really happy that you can join us today. Now, Mineral Talks Live, we are a interactive talk show. So this talk show involves you participating in the show as well. So if you have any questions, any comments, that's going to be done through the Q&A and the chat feature at the bottom of the window. So while our guests and I are chatting, if you have any kind of general comments or anything, you can put that in the chat window. And while we won't see those comments, Raquel and Eloise will be very active in the chat window. So watch for their responses. If while we're talking, you have some kind of general question that you really want to ask, but it may not be pertinent to what we're talking about at that precise moment, go ahead and type that into the Q&A section, and we will do our best to get to that question at the end of the show. About 40 minutes into the show, you're going to see a screen pop up on your window, and that's the quick fire 5 questions, where you are going to try to guess the answers to the 5 questions that we are going to pose to our guests. Now, our guest has all the right answers, so you have to try to guess. We're going to do the same. Hopefully, the answers will match up. Now, with that, we are headed all the way out to the west coast of California, and we are going to Los Angeles, my hometown, and we've got Dr. Aaron Celestian from the LA Museum ready to chat with us. Aaron, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good. Sorry, I'm late. I was in a PhD committee meeting right before this, and everybody likes to talk, so I had to stay until right to the very end. So, but now I'm very happy to be here with you, and thank you again for inviting me to be on the show.
Well, Aaron, thank you again for being on the show. We're really excited to have you. Now, you know that whenever we start the show, we like to turn the clock back a little bit and get a little background information. So let's do that with you. When was the first time you remember being kind of caught up or interested in minerals, where it kind of piqued your attention and kind of started igniting that passion?
That's a good question. It's hard to say. Both my parents, maybe some of you know my parents, they're both avid geologists and collectors in Arizona. So I grew up around that. But I really didn't find my passion, I was always interested in minerals and crystal form and color. It was always a part of my life. But I didn't really get interested in really dive deep until probably college, when I took a class at the University of Arizona from Bob Downs when he first got to Arizona. So he was my first mineralogy instructor. He was new there. He was full of excitement, and I was just super excited to be a part of this world of mineralogy that I had never been exposed to before, and I was hooked. And from then on, I was just diving deeper and deeper, as many chances I can get.
Well, I mean, that's really understandable. Bob is so passionate and he talks about mineralogy with such kind of a childlike glee that it's really easy to get caught up in that passion with him.
Yeah, it's very easy to. Definitely. So from there, I graduated University of Arizona in 1999 and went to Stony Brook University in New York, SUNY Stony Brook, what it was called then, and worked with John Parise, who is a chemist and geologist doing high pressure mineral sciences. But then eventually started working more environmental mineralogy from there. And that's kind of like how that's my education up to that point. And from there, I taught at Queens College for a year, still in New York. We lived in New York for a while. And then went on to becoming a professor of geology at Western Kentucky University for about 8.5 years. And from that point, I'm here.
So then how did this eventually lead into the research that you do regarding minerals?
So yeah, that's a good question. That's kind of like this evolutionary project. So it's always built project upon project upon project, just builds off of each other. And that's kind of how it developed. So I was doing high pressure mineralogy, experimental design, and then I took that into more of environmental applications, developing instrumentation, developing tools to analyze things in real time. Because at the time in the late 90s, early 2000s, like in situ analysis, like looking at mineral changes in real time was a big challenge experimentally. And so I was developing tools in order to be able to do that. And such that led to new questions and new answers. And now we're designing new minerals, new materials that were synthetic for solving a lot of environmental problems, of medical and environmental stuff. So I'm doing that work here at the museum and just trying to solve mostly heavy metal issues in Los Angeles and around the world.
Do you want to talk about some of those heavy metal projects? I know a little bit about them, but if you
Yeah,
wanted to share with the audience.
yeah, definitely. My first heavy metal project was looking at radioactive waste and how to sequester it. And that was a big problem. Everybody thought like uranium was the big issue. Uranium is not such of a problem because it's not a super high gamma emitter of radiation. The hottest things are going to be cesium and strontium, the short-lived isotopes of the radioactive waste byproduct. Those are the things like the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Those were cesium and strontium were the high radiation emitters that they were targeting during the radioactive waste cleanup. And they actually used materials that I characterized during my PhD at Stony Brook to clean up the Fukushima nuclear disaster. So I was one of the first people to figure out why this mineral worked as good as it did for just absorbing cesium and nothing else. And that's being used. So in Los Angeles, a little bit closer to home, I'm part of a project where we're cleaning up lead from old lead acid battery recycling facilities. It's called the old Exide battery recycling plant. And their lead has just gone off into the atmosphere. It's just disgusting. There's lead in the soil all over the place. I think like the EPA limit is like 200 ppm for residential soil or 150 ppm, something like that. We're finding people's homes in the thousands of ppm, like ridiculously high amounts of lead. So we're finding ways, we're developing ways to remediate that. Now, it's not going to alleviate what the government has to do. The government is still supposed to come in and remove the soil, but we're trying to make it so that the lead is no longer bioaccessible and can't be incorporated into the human body and nervous system. So
Now,
we're using, yeah.
What was
Go
the
ahead.
source of all that lead that you're finding in LA?
This from a lot of surprise. More I dig into it, the more like there's lead all over the place. There's the Exide lead acid battery recycling facility, and that just was lead everywhere. But there's old automotive car paint facilities where the leaded paint is just getting all over the soil and it's into the groundwater system as well. It's all over the place. There's a school just not that far from here. I think it's in Hawthorne, which is about, 10 or so miles southwest of downtown Los Angeles. And there's metallic metal in the playgrounds at this school. I mean, there's a recycling facility right next door to the school. I mean, it's just a big big problem.
And there's no other way that the government has or anyone has to clean that up.
It's expensive, right? You got to go in. The only method that the government uses is, at least here in Los Angeles, is to go in and dig up the soil and replace it with non-contaminated lead soil. That's very expensive. The soil that they transport someplace else is still contaminated. It's got to go somewhere, right? And it still has bioaccessible lead within it. So yeah, it's being treated at the source, but where is it going in the future? And that's what we're trying to tackle right now.
Gotcha. And so what you're finding is a mineral that's binding with it and neutralizing it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a mineral called zeolite. There's a group of minerals called zeolite, and we tested a whole bunch of different types of zeolites. There's a bunch of them out there, and I can show you what it looks like, what the mineral looks like. I have a whole bag of it. So this is the lab, part of the lab. This is the zeolite down here, and you can see it's just this fine powdered material that you could spread on somebody's soil. You can mix it in with compost. This particular zeolite is clinoptilolite from the company Zeosource. You could buy them at Home Depot. No advertisements there. But
we lost the camera there, Aaron. Aaron, as you were plugging your share of Home Depot, something happened to your camera. There we go. Okay. Oh, I think we lost audio. Aaron, we can't hear you. I think when you're...
I'm terrible. All right.
There we go. Oh, we're fine. We're fine.
I had zeolite all over my hand. It's messed up with the camera.
So it not only binds lead, it also binds video cameras on iPhone.
Yeah, don't dip it in it. Don't dip your camera in it. Yeah, but it's great. It's mined here in California, which I didn't know until I started working on it a bit more. It's mined in the Mojave Desert, just around Barstow, California. So it's local sourced zeolite. It's already fine grained. The nice thing about it compared to other clinoptilites, clinoptilite will often have calcium and iron and other things in it, which don't make it super good for absorbing lead. Well, this one has mostly just sodium in it. And what I mean by that is if you look back here at some of these, let me change the camera direction again. You can look at some of these crystal structures, and zeolites are zeolitic materials. I don't have any proper zeolites up here, but have like these really big pore systems in them that are filled with water. And that's where the lead is going inside of these pores. And it's binding to the framework, which is in this case is the octahedra and tetrahedra shown here in orange and yellow. And for it to be really good at binding the lead, it has to be just selective for lead, nothing else. You don't want it to absorb all kinds of other stuff. And it has to hold onto it very tightly so it doesn't re-release it back out into the environment. So we were testing a bunch of these different types of zeolites to find out which ones are cost effective because it can't be expensive, which ones work really well, and how does it work? And can you just apply it to the soil? What are the application methods that would be best for this particular zeolite? And how long does it hold on to the lead without giving it up? So there's a lot of questions that we have to answer before we can start applying it to people's properties.
Sure. Now, how did you first find out that the zeolites were going to be binding to lead? I mean, it's like a rather random thing. We're talking about the different zeolites that bind different things, but how did you first find out that that was working?
Well, there's been known for a while that zeolites do it. Why this particular one, I stumbled upon it by accident. So I was doing uranium exchange or uranium ion exchange. I was during my PhD, I was trying to figure out can these zeolites absorb uranium? It turns out, long story short, no, they can't. They just bind to the outside of the crystal and don't actually go into the crystal. But during that process, I was at Brookhaven National Lab and I was doing this ion exchange. I was using Brookhaven National Lab water, and I was seeing changes happening to the zeolite. It was just changing over time. And when I did the chemical analysis, there was no uranium in it at all. And there was a lot of lead. I was like, where is this lead coming from there? So I did lead analysis of my uranium source, and there was basically nothing in it. I couldn't figure out where is this lead coming from? And then I finally said, well, let's look at the water. So we did water chemistry, Turned out the lab water had a bunch of lead in it. And so the zeolite was so selective for lead, it just sucked it right out of the water, locked it up in its crystal structure. I informed the beamline scientists, and they informed the lab, and then they eventually replaced a lot of piping there at the lab. Probably was coming from old lead pipes or soldering within in the lab. But yeah, it was by complete accident. So from then on, I knew that this mineral was really selective and had a high capacity for lead absorption.
That is fantastic. I love that. Now, what is that machine that's behind you? Is that a machine that you use to examine how much lead has been absorbed by the zeolites?
Yes, this is a powder X-ray diffractometer. This one, in case if those of you are familiar with X-ray diffractometers, this one's made by Proto. Proto is a company in Massachusetts. One of my former students used to work for them. That's why I was able to get a good deal on this particular model. But it's great. So we put the powdered zeolite in there, and we X-ray the powder before and after lead absorption to see how much went into it and how the crystal structure changed as a result of lead absorption. So we'll do that with zeolite in the soil. We'll do that with zeolite without the soil. We really want to characterize as much as possible. So that gives us crystal structure information, like where the atoms are in space. It's not very good at telling us the chemistry of the zeolite. That's why we use this one over here.
More toys.
Yeah. So this is an X-ray fluorescence microscope. We can do elemental mapping of a single grain of zeolite, so we can see how far the lead goes into the zeolite crystal, how much is going inside the zeolite crystal, so we can get quantitative and qualitative data from that. So that just measures like how much elements are present and where they are in the crystal. So combined, knowing where the atoms are using X-ray diffraction and X-ray fluorescence, what kinds of elements are present is pretty powerful techniques.
That is fantastic. Now, I know from my end, typically when I think about museum, I think primarily about, just a place to exhibit and collect minerals, but you're showing me a whole new aspect of the museum there. So,
right.
I love this whole research part of it. It's fascinating.
So behind me, we're on exhibit 2. So you guys are part of the exhibit right now. There is a window right into the hall right behind me where the lab is on view to public access. We have content out there. We explain what's going on in the lab. There's videos and all kinds of information to show people what a museum is doing in 2022.
That's fantastic, because I know I spent a lot of time at the La Brea Tar Pits, the Page Museum, and they had the same kind of thing. They had the windows where you can see them taking the tar off the bones, but I've never seen this in kind of a scientific research lab. That's great to see.
It's a bit intimidating.
What kind of equipment do you have in the lab there that you use? So
we have this one here. This is a single crystal X-ray diffraction. It's very similar to the powder, except you use single crystals, and it's actually a lot easier to use to determine atomic arrangements of solids. So we use that one in conjunction with the powder. And we also have, I'll just flip the camera around. Hopefully you can still hear me. Just a view of the lab where we are. There's the XRF again over on the right. And we also have a Raman spectrometer right here. It's just a laser spectrometer, figure out how atoms are bound to each other, vibrational spectroscopy. This is actually the workhorse in the lab. It's very good at identifying minerals really quickly within seconds, usually. And then if you walk over here through this door, this is where we have our new scanning electron microscope. So everything is all right next to us. So SEM, Raman, XRD, XRF, and a bunch of optical microscopes as well.
Fantastic. And how many people do you have working in the lab there with you?
Officially, 2. Right now, it's me and your nephew, which is Charlie Nichols, is working in the lab as well. He is fantastic, by the way. Don't tell him I said that.
I won't.
trying to keep him working hard. Tony Kampf is still here. He's retired. He still comes to work on Tuesdays and Thursdays mostly. Still very productive, putting out a lot of publications. But besides that, permanent staff currently, that's about it. Alyssa Morgan is, some of you may know her. She's on medical leave right now, so hopefully we're always thinking about her. And we have lots of people from USC, Caltech, UCLA Medical School, the Getty. Lots of people from all over the place use this lab for its facilities and specimens as well.
That's fantastic. I love it. And so, when they're coming in to use the lab, are they also drawing from the museum collection to do analysis?
They are. We do loan out. We loan out specimens all over the world. But a lot of times people want to come in and just use particular specimens and collect the data while they're here, and then go off to the home institution. That they don't have to fill out any paperwork for that. They just come in as a guest from their university or from their organization, and I help them find samples that they need. I help them with the analyses, and so it's really quite good. We get lots of people doing that kind of work.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've seen the lab side of the museum. How about let's go out and take a look at some of the exhibits, if possible.
All right. Yeah, definitely. It's right there. So we just walk right next door. I'm going to flip the camera around so you're not looking at me the whole time. Okay.
All right.
And I'll try to walk as smoothly as I can. So again, there's the part of the hall out there. You can see some of the cases through the lighting. We're just going to walk through the SEM lab. Into the SEM exhibit, there's a big zeolite picture taken from the scanning electron microscope. It's absolutely huge. There's my hand. Crystals are gigantic. I love that picture.
Is there any kind of like size reference on there?
There's a fire extinguisher.
Oh, I see. No, I was wondering like some kind of reference to something that we knew in the real world, like a thickness of a strand of hair or something.
Yeah, that's about right. These crystals are they're about half the size of a strand of hair.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so that's just to give you a sense of scale. So they're about 50 microns to 100 microns or so wide. This whole pocket that I took a picture of was about the size of a pea initially. Yeah, so that whole area there was the size of a pea.
I love it. That is fantastic.
So we got into the hall. As I walked through the hall, when I tested it before, my voice sort of cut in and out. So I will stop talking for a second.
Okay.
Only grows in any significant quantity. Material, benitoite, is something that we're using to tackle problems like toxic metals.
All right. So here we are in the gem vault. Go here first because this is the closest to the lab. And I don't know if you can still hear me or not. The air conditioning is pretty loud. But here, this is where we keep our gems. This is a real vault. It gets closed up every night. So they don't trust me with the code. So I have to wait until they open it up every morning. But this is where we keep lots of sapphires and rubies. Here's hopefully the Wi-Fi is okay.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a big cashmere, almost 7-carat cashmere sapphire, lots and lots of different colors. Rock Creek, El Dorado bar, sapphires from Montana. And in the back of the room, we have our California collection of gems, which would be spessartine from the Hercules mine. We got benitoite from the benitoite gem mine, tourmaline from the Stewart mine, and nice amethyst from Xavier Lake in Fresno. But we got topaz from the Little Three, and all these are California gems. So we have a whole case on that.
I love that it's a rough and cut display.
Yeah, we're going to try to do more of that. So we're going to try to do more jewelry as well. Instead of all of these are loose stones throughout here, the zircons, spinel, and rubies. And again, these are all research specimens too, even though they're on display. If somebody had a really good reason, they could borrow one and do non-destructive analyses on them. So we do loan these out for those kinds of applications. Doesn't happen very often, but because we have a research gem collection as well that we prefer people to draw from. But some of them are just so rare that they have to draw from what's on display.
Now, to my recollection, you guys have the rarest gemstone in the world. I can't remember the name of it, but I know it was from Mogok.
Yeah, that's right. That's not on display because it's so tiny. It's a 1.6 carat stone compared to the other stones. It's tiny. I mean, no, 1.6 isn't necessarily tiny, but yeah, it's called Chatuite, and it's the only one in the world. There's no other known Chatuite gems or crystals that have ever been found. So it's the world's rarest gemstone.
I love it.
Yeah, we had it on display for a little bit, but it really is. It's just lost in the case. So we got to figure out something better to do with it. Maybe mount it in jewelry. I don't know. So if there's any jewelers out there that want to donate their time and metal, we'd be happy for you to do something with it.
All right.
So then as we come out into the hall, you can see in the background out there, that is the systematic wall case. And that's where we have everything from the native elements all the way to the far left and going through carbonates and arsenates and so on, all the way to the framework silicates on the far right. And in the parallelograms that are here in the middle, this is where we keep just aesthetically pleasing mineral samples on display. So this is one of my favorite cases here.
And why is this one of your favorites?
Well, it's got a lot of interesting things in it. This barrel here is really saturated aquamarine. It is a really dark color aqua. It is for such a big aquamarine crystal. It's really quite fantastic. But there's some interesting research specimens in here as well. There's some zeolites in the back. I'll go on the other side. This spiky one here is a mesolite. So somewhat similar to a naturalite crystal. That is the kinds of zeolites that we're using for environmental remediation, for toxic metals in the human body, those kinds of things, like a potassium ion exchanger and so on. And then there's the gypsum crystal behind it. Now, this gypsum crystal is pretty interesting. It's from Zanaikia mine in Mexico.
Okay.
And these crystals, most everybody's familiar with these. This is probably just a tiny little chip off of one. And again, here's my hand for size. Yep. It's interesting about these is that they harbor bacteria inside the crystal. So there's tiny little fluid inclusions in there that are about 50,000 years old or so, and they can be brought back to life. So that's one of the research projects that we're working on here at the museum is like, how do minerals hold on to these bacteria for eons and eons and eons? How do they survive for that long? There's all kinds of interesting questions about mineral microbe interaction at these timescales. And we're applying that to search for life on other planets and moons in our solar system. So we're looking at halides, gypsum crystals, all kinds of salts from extreme environments on Earth to help inform what we might find on other planets and moons in our solar system.
Very exciting.
And also the color rings. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry?
Is that a crocoite plate there?
Yeah. I was just going to mention that this case is also pretty nice in that there's lots of contrasting colors in it as well, right next to a beautiful emerald from Muslo. And we got reds and greens. It's just a really interesting, well put together case. Of course, Neptunite and Naturalite from California.
Right.
A big plate.
You got a sweet little heliodor down to the right there.
Oh, yeah. So we're working on the lighting. This one's a little bit in the dark. There's just a big point source right above us, but eventually we'll get some better lighting in here. This hall is circa 1978. So there's a lot of things that have changed since 1978 that we'd like to improve in the hall. Lighting is one of them. Glue is another. Paint is a third. So there's some issues with paint that I'd rather not point out. But the specimens are still absolutely fantastic. You can't really improve upon them too much.
Yeah. Now, being in LA, I would imagine you have some nice San Diego pieces there.
Oh, yes. Let's go to this California wall. So we do have a wall specifically for California specimens. Go past the gold hall here. I'll share those pictures on.
Okay, it's sounding like we're transferring Wi-Fi sections here. Both the audio and the video from Aaron is cut out, but that little
California
outro
wall.
to the left. Oh, here we go. We're back. All right.
So here, Brian, you might like this one. It's a blue cap from the Queen Mine.
I've heard of that place somehow. It seems familiar.
Maybe? I don't know. All right. I thought you might have heard of it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, tourmaline from the chief, albite from the chief. Some beautiful morganites from the White Queen Mine. Spodumene.
White Queen is that's lost forever. We'll never be able to dig there again. That's gone back to the Taoist tribe. So, that's
okay.
one of those sites that we won't see stuff come out from again.
Okay. Yeah, it could be clean. Yeah, that's a really nice specimen too. Beautiful gemmy morganite. And then another one of our famous specimens here from the Himalayan mines, beautiful tourmaline quartz cluster.
Nice morganite there.
Yeah, definitely. So as we go down, there's organized roughly based on county geographic position. So that was the southern counties. And then we kind of move north towards Fresno. We have a nice Fresnoite somewhere over here. Where's our Fresnoite? Did I pass it? No, it's right over here. So Benitoite, more Benitoite. We got Benitoite coming out of her ears.
That's nice.
Yeah, and then here's some Fresnoites, which is pretty rare. This is actually a really big Fresnoite crystal. From the same approximately same location. Yeah, and more gold. So we got gold and Benitoite, lots of it. And lots of California specimens as well. So there's about 2,000 specimens on display here at the museum. In total, we have roughly 175,000 to 200,000 specimens in all. So you're only just seeing a tiny fraction of what is actually in our collection at the museum.
And how often do you swap out displays?
We don't. We recently just put this one on display. So we do small ones at a time. It's actually a lot of work to swap out specimens. There's a lot of conservation issues that we have to take care of. This is a beautiful albaite from Cruzeiro mine in Minas Gerais, Brazil, that we just put on display. So this is relatively new. So we'll do some small stuff like this. We do temporary gem exhibits that last 10 weeks or so. Those vary in size, but they always go back to their original owners afterwards. And then we put our permanent display back on.
I know. Yeah. I think one of the last times I was in there, Paula Trebuchet had her exhibit on display.
Yes. Yeah, that was a few years ago. That was pre-pandemic, right?
Yes.
With Robert Prokop, jeweler in Beverly Hills here, with some of his clients as well. That was a really nice exhibit. So we don't have that much jewelry and fancy gems. So that's the kind of exhibits that we tend to do because we don't have a lot of that in our collection. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing that we will do. We'll also do mineral exhibits as well. So it all depends on, what the museum executives decide and how it best fits other exhibits that are going on in the museum.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So now we're back in the systematic wall and some nice gold, again, platinum nuggets. some platinum down here from Russia. So we're also going through currently updating labels. We had labels that said USSR, Czechoslovakia, things that actually don't exist anymore.
Right.
So that's turned out to be a process. We have maybe 150 specimens on display where the either country of origin name changed or spelling has changed. And we got to go through every one of those and redo that. So that means taking specimens off the display, reprinting labels to make it match the original labels that were on there, and then putting them back out on display. So we've been at that for about a month or so. It's time consuming because we have to close the hall, and therefore nobody can visit the hall that day, which is a problem, of course. And so we either work in the morning or evening and do late openings. So it's a lot of work.
Sure. Aaron, about how many people come through the hall on a monthly basis?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's see. We get roughly about 900,000 to 1 million visitors a year. The Gem Hall is definitely one of the most highly visited ones.
Wow.
So I'll be conservative and say 900,000 divided by 12 would give you the number. So maybe 50,000 people. I'll be generous, be lowballing it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. So La Brea Tar Pits is also our museum. So people will come from the La Brea Tar Pits. They buy a ticket from the La Brea Tar Pits. It's good at the Natural History Museum as well. So we get crowds from there. They reciprocate the offer.
That's great. Now, is there any kind of feedback loop? Have you heard what the visitors tend to gravitate towards in the mineral world? I know that the Gem Hall is a major attraction, but in the mineral world, where do they tend to kind of congregate?
Well, that's where I tend to go to Instagram. That is actually a great source, crowdsource information of what people tend to take pictures of. And one of the most photographed specimens in the hall is this is one of them. So around February, you'll see lots of this calcite crystal from our hall, this heart-shaped twin calcite from England. And then this one over here. Yeah, that's right. It's the love calcite.
Okay, the signal's breaking up because I think Aaron was laughing a little bit too long on that one.
From India. Eight of the crystals I've seen what people are drawn to. But mostly a lot of it is shape. A lot of people comment on the beautiful form, the beautiful shape, and they can't believe how natural these things grow like that.
Yeah. Now, Aaron, is there a way that we could take a look at the gold area? I know that the Wi-Fi seems real spotty around there.
I will walk there now, and we'll see how well it works.
What did you do? How about yours? You describe it.
All right. Yeah, some of the most famous gold pieces in the world have come out of California, so this will be interesting to see here. Yeah, I think this is a weak area for Wi-Fi coverage, so we may not be able to really see anything. Oh, there we go. Nice.
There's a wire gold from the Hedgehog mine that Raquel is very familiar with. I think there's like 3 of these wire golds that were taken out of the same pocket. Harvard has one. I think the Natural History Museum, Smithsonian has one, and we have one. And then there's the largest still in existing gold nugget from California, the Mojave nugget, 156 troy ounces. And
where's the Mojave
various
nugget
forms
from?
of gold. Yeah, the Mojave nugget.
Where's that from?
That is from San Bernardino County, California.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have lots of nuggets. We have lots of different forms of golds. Starting to get kind of crowded.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So we have the two largest nuggets still in existence in California, as far as we know. There's the Mojave nuggets, and then the Peterson nugget.
Wow, look at that.
So on the top of the picture here is the Peterson nuggets. This is from the mother lode. It's 109 ounces of 109 troy ounces of gold, and it's surrounded by other gold from various localities in California.
Superb. Do you do any research on the gold that you have in the collection?
I'm trying to figure out a good one to do that would get funding from NSF and such, but no, not so much.
Yeah, but you have a great collection there. It looks like you've got some really good material that you can draw upon. That's superb.
Yeah, and this is just the display stuff. We have hundreds and hundreds of pieces of small bits of gold from all over California. That would make for a good research project if somebody had some like analytical capabilities to do trace element analysis and such.
Terrific. Aaron, what is your personal favorite piece in the exhibit?
It changes, I'd say.
What's your favorite piece for today?
I'm feeling a little prickly today, so I don't know. I'd probably go with a mesolite or a scolecite of some kind. I'm very simple. I really like plain minerals that have interesting research stories. So this mesolite here, like most of the Indian, I know it's common. I know there's tons of it out there, but I'm always drawn to this crystal morphology and form, just how delicate it is and how amazing it just is to grow out of the ground like that. I know it's common. I know I'm boring.
No, but I think it's interesting because as a researcher, you're drawn to the things that can actually kind of do something, or at least it seems like you're drawn to the minerals that can actually do something to change or better our lives.
Yeah, I think so. I'm also drawn to the ones that I've personally, or I've been to the locality and collected. So we have some red crowd wolfenite that is quite nice. Here it is over here. I've been to the Red Cloud mine. I've collected there as a kid, and it just brings back memories. So that's another thing one thing that I really like about minerals is that they're just good mementos and reliving past parts of my life.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. Hey, so I know we were talking about the kind of the research side of it at the beginning. Wondering if you might be able to go back to the lab and show us some of the research collection that you have. And in the meantime, maybe Raquel can pop up the quiz.
And in the meantime, can you stop by the vault, Aaron, just for a few seconds to show us
sure.
the mineral and to show us the famous benitoite, which is my favorite specimen in the entire collection.
Which one? I'm sorry.
The benitoite, you know the one.
Oh,
inside the vault.
The benitoite reef.
Yes.
Yeah.
She misses it. You can tell.
She does. She risks injuring herself by speaking. Oh yeah.
That's the one.
Great.
Thank
you. If I'm not mistaken, was that not featured in American Mineral Treasures?
Yes, it was. And it has a great story behind it. Tony put it back together. He put each single crystal place by place because they were detached. When they removed it out of the ground, it was inside the rock still. So they removed the rock to retrieve the benitoite crystals. And they had to retake them and put them side by side next to each other, find the crystal in place, rebuilding the entire puzzle. So it's very amazing rock.
Superb.
And someone was asking about red barrels. Do you have any in the collection, Aaron?
Do I have any questions?
So do you have
Yes.
any red barrels in the collection?
Red barrel. Sorry. Yes. I'll go out. Not in the gem vault. It's out on the wall. I'll go out there now.
Sorry, Aaron, we have you walking back and forth consistently.
I'm getting my steps in. Don't worry.
Working that Fitbit.
Aaron, I just launched the pool, so feel free to close the window for you.
Okay, I close it. I'm not seeing the pole.
All right, good. There's our red barrel, Wawa Mountains of Utah. Those are always great.
We will have a bunch of questions for Aaron when he gets back to the lab. So
I think anybody who comes to visit and they take their time and go through the exhibit, they'll be surprised at really kind of quality of some of the specimens you have.
Another one of my favorites is the quartz from Guerrero, the amethyst from Guerrero. We had a tattoo exhibit here at the museum a few years back, and somebody got this tattooed on their leg, the specimen.
Come on.
Yeah.
Where were they from? It wouldn't happen to be Leah Luton who did the tattoo, was it?
I don't think so. I don't know who did it. It was such a long time ago. I just have it. It was really good tattoo as well. It looked exactly like it.
That's fantastic. Oh, and look at that Amazonite and smoky quartz.
Oh yeah. And some more zeolites down here. So it's starting to get busy. So usually people will go to the dinosaur hall in the morning and then work their way over to the mineral exhibit afterwards. So I think we're about that time for that part.
Is that a wolfenite on the bottom shelf there?
Yes, there's a few of them down here. There's a red cloud. There's one red cloud, and then San Francisco mine.
Oh, that was
Is that
early
one?
San Francisco. Yeah, I lived there at the San Francisco for a while.
and look at the powlites next to it. I love the powlites on top of the scolecite. This is one of my
That
favorites
is
as well.
superb.
I just love it.
Yeah, we took that one to Tucson one year. This powellite and scolecite.
And Aaron, there's a question from the audience. How do you do to secure the specimens from earthquakes?
Specimens from earthquake. Well, there's only so much you can do. One thing to do is that each one of these blocks is not fixed to the base. So when there's an earthquake, they are allowed to shift a little bit, and so that it's not like putting a lot of stress on the minerals. The minerals themselves are fixed to the acrylic block really quite well, but that's about it. Now, anything that's like top heavy or something like that will have secondary safety features installed so that the mineral doesn't tend to topple over maybe on top of other minerals. In some cases, that's the case. In other ones, it's not. So there's this one right here, this really tall one. You can see it doesn't have any secondary stabilization at all. That's something that we still have to work on and get through and make sure that it doesn't fall over. But as we install new things, like that big Brazilian green tourmaline in the front. That thing is really locked into place. It's definitely not falling over at all. We are definitely thinking about that for sure. Yeah. Any other? Oh, sorry. You wanted to go back into the? I got distracted. You wanted to go back.
It's easy to get distracted looking at
Sorry.
that. Yeah.
Go back into the.
Kind of the research collection.
Another question was about your micromounts collection. Is there any of the micromounts on display, and how many micromounts do you have in the collection?
Okay, that's the micromounts are in the research part of. We have maybe 50 to 100,000, 50 to 75,000 micromounts in the collection that are cataloged. We probably have another 10 or so thousand specimens that are not cataloged. And it just keeps growing. Oh, you don't want to see the key that I use. That's another security feature.
Aaron, it's very cute to see the kids watching you through the window, but I don't know how that goes when you are all day working and everyone is on top of you looking what you are doing.
Making faces.
Yeah, they definitely keep me honest. That's for sure. I can't do things improperly. I have to dispose all my chemicals properly and all that stuff. So we separate the collection based on size. So these are the thumbnails right here. We have these really nice Lista cabinets that are earthquake proofed, so they don't come toppling over on us. And they can hold like 600 pounds per drawer. Not that we need that, but it's kind of nice to have that flexibility in here. So we have a whole bunch of micros. We probably have 20,000 or so micro mounts in this, and they're stored alphabetically. That makes moving specimens around a little bit easier, especially the micro mounts, unless we did it like with Nickel-Struen's classification, which has changed a little bit over the course of the last 40 years. And then here are the thumbnail collection. So all these cabinets here and behind me, these are all the thumbnail collection. Here's a fluorite drawer, and these are all mostly stored in the original collector's cases. So this Julius Weber. I'll pick one that has a clear top, so I don't have to flip it open with one hand. And these are great research specimens because they're so small. They fit on our instruments with no problem. They're easy to loan for destructive analysis. So when we loan them out, we just don't ask for them back. They get to keep them. That's actually not a loan then. It's a gift. We still call it a loan internally. But yeah, so there's a bunch there, and we're constantly drawing from it. I would say that this, research-wise, this is probably the most important part of our collection. It's
fantastic. Now, Aaron, are you accepting collections if they're being donated to the museum?
Yes, we are. I just picked up a new collection of agate. I have this ongoing agate research project with the Getty and Caltech. And I picked up a huge collection from a private collector in New York. That was actually, Raquel was part of that acquisition as well. So some of his collection went to Harvard, some of his collection went to the Smithsonian, some of it went to us. And it was a fantastic opportunity to get some really amazing agates and obsidians that we'll be using for research purposes in the future. I will be getting
on the agates.
Sorry?
What research are you doing on the agates?
Oh, well, we're looking at art history sort of objects. So there's some objects at the Getty that have a lot of gemstones in them, agates, various forms of amethysts and other forms of quartz, citrine and such. And the question is like, where do they get the source from? So this particular chest was made for a pope in, this is a chest that's currently on display. It's called the Windsor Borghese chest. It's at the Getty Center. And it was made around late 1400s, early 1500s. And they were wondering, like, during that time, Idar Oberstein, the valley there where they were drawing most of the agate from, would probably be used as a source. The Idar Oberstein deposit is Permian in age. It's about 220 million years or so old. That's how old the rocks are. And at those age of those rocks, so when quartz forms, it forms quartz. Of course, when agate forms, it forms quartz. But there's also another form of quartz, another form of silica that forms. It's called moganite, not morganite, but moganite. And it's a slightly hydrated form of quartz that's alternating twins of quartz crystals, but it's metastable, it doesn't last forever. So the idea is that really old agate has little to no moganite, where very young agate has lots and lots of moganite. So when we look at the Windsor-Borghese cabinet, we were looking for ratios of moganite to quartz. So if it was Permian in age, we expect to find almost no moganite in it. It's just too old to have it. All the moganite converted to quartz over time. What we found out was that there was agate that had lots of moganite in it, meaning that it was either replaced during a restoration process, it was not original agate of that chest, or they were sourcing moganite from some other place besides Idar Oberstein. So we think maybe one possible source was from Germany. Not from Germany. That's where we think where they got most of it from. But from Brazil, they were doing a lot of wood trade during Brazil between Europe and South America, what's now South America, at the time. And they could have been loading the boats with ballast, which would have been agate, and bringing it back to Germany. So that's one idea. There's other ideas out there as well, but that one's the most romantic one.
That's really interesting, because I'm actually broadcasting you live from Idar Oberstein right now.
Oh, great!
Yeah, and I know that there was a lot of history between Idar Oberstein and Brazil when they started running out of the agates that they could carve here. That they started drawing upon the agates in Brazil. So I think your instinct is spot on there.
Thanks. Yeah, I know there's boat records that date back to the early 1800s, late 1700s, showing shipments of agate coming in from Brazil. But before that, there is very little record of that happening. So this may be an example of very early trading between the South America and Europe.
Absolutely. Fantastic. All right. Aaron, we're kind of at the end of the show. Now we're at the Quickfire 5 question segment, and I hope you're ready.
Okay.
Well, here's the way it goes. We've got 5 questions for you. Each question has 2 answers. All of your answers are correct. When the poll was launched not too long ago, all of the viewers guessed how you might answer. So we're going to see how well our viewers guessed how you're going to answer these next 5 questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Let's go.
All right. Question number 1. Your favorite mineral family, carbonates or silicates?
Oh no, you can't be asking that question. My wife is
they get harder.
Carbonates. My wife loves carbonates, but I'm gonna say carbonate.
Carbonate. All right. Question number 2. Favorite sport, running or climbing?
Oh, that's definitely climbing for sure. Running is painful, but climbing is painful but fun.
Favorite instrument, guitar or piano?
Guitar for sure. I'm a classical guitarist, trained classical guitarist. Been playing for, since high school. So 20 years, something like that, 25 years.
So answer is?
Yes, guitar.
Okay. Favorite pet, cat or dog?
I have cats. Yeah, it's going to be cats because I have them.
Got to be cats.
I love dogs, though. I live in a small place. It's LA.
Well, yeah. And you have to answer properly as to how Jenna would answer so that there's no friction when you go home. Favorite artistic project, calligraphy or photography?
I was a photography major at first. I was not a geology major when I started college, in fact. So that's interesting that you brought that up. But I've been practicing calligraphy for the last 15 years. So yeah, it's definitely calligraphy.
Wow.
I think all my
Okay.
notes, all my lab notebooks are in calligraphy. I use dip pens and for all my lab notes.
Let's see. Hold one up. Do you have one near you?
No, I don't.
Get Charlie to bring you one. Get Charlie to do some work.
He's out of earshot. Maybe he's at lunch or something. I didn't see him coming in.
All righty. Okay, so we have your 5 answers. Who's doing this? I guess Raquel's doing this because Eloise is not allowed to talk.
Yeah, she
Okay,
already
so-
forced herself today, but she couldn't handle it, not asking and see her favorite minerals. Sorry.
Totally. Okay, so question number 1. Favorite mineral family, carbonates or silicates? Aaron went with carbonates. What did our readers say?
Silicates. He
Yeah, I
leads us to
totally get why you'd say
silicate.
that. I totally get why you'd say that. I don't know why I said carbonates. Sorry.
Okay. Question number 2, favorite sport, running or climbing? You went with climbing. Raquel, what did our viewers say?
I think the viewers haven't really looked at Aaron's shoulders, because if you look at it, you know he's a climber. They went with running, unfortunately.
Aaron, I think that means Raquel's been looking at your shoulders.
He and a climber too, so that's something of I see him climbing. So yeah.
Yeah, right on. Question number 3, guitar or piano? Aaron went with guitar. What did our viewers say?
80% of the audience guitar.
All right, there's one.
Terrific. Dog or cat? Aaron went with cat. Eloise is
Audience-
overjoyed.
The audience thought he was more of a dog person, which
I love
seems
dogs.
So, yeah.
I just
They
can't
got
have a
that
dog.
right, I would say, but
I can't have a dog in my tiny townhome. So
Okay. And last and final question, calligraphy or photography? Aaron went with calligraphy.
I know that's a surprise. People thought photography.
oh, that's great. I actually
would've
did
thought the same.
I did the labels. My parents did an exhibit at Tucson, and I did their labels in calligraphy one year. So look out for the Celestians exhibit next year. Maybe there'll be more calligraphy.
Yes, let's see it.
Very
Let's
cool.
see it. Tucson
cool.
2024. All right, I
You know,
think we've got a bunch of-
the annoying thing with Aaron is like he's annoyingly good at everything. You know, he's good in sports, he's good in like photography, he's good in teaching, he's good in researching. That's that's something.
It just makes him more lovable.
Oh, cute.
All
We
right,
have a few
Raquel.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you, Q&A.
We have a couple of questions, and then I have a few more of this. So from Patricia early on, she asked, do electric cars have lead in their battery?
There's a high voltage battery, and then there is a low voltage battery in the cars. I just bought an electric car. I should know this. The main battery of the electric car, the big high voltage one, does not have any lead in it. There are mostly lithium, manganese, oxygen. Some of them, there's like 4 or 5 different types of car batteries. There's iron phosphate, lithium iron phosphate, which is becoming more and more dominant in Europe. And I think more Teslas are going to have lithium iron phosphates. They're more stable over time versus the lithium manganese oxide, which is the predominantly one that's used. So no lead, it's good.
So now that you mentioned phosphates, and this is I was really intrigued by your research on the Foxite. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, Foxite was amazing. That was a specimen Tony Camp, I think he collected it in the Raleigh mine in Arizona. It was either him or one of his colleagues that collected it. It is amazing. It forms on a wall in a cave, only on one level. Sorry, not a cave, a mine, in the Raleigh mine. Forms on one level of the Raleigh mine, and it forms in association with bat guano. So there's some relationship between what's happening with the bat guano and the vanadinite and other minerals that are on the cave mine wall, that in this humid environment that produces this new mineral, Foxite. Now, Foxite itself is really cool because it is possibly the most porous mineral, framework mineral, out of all minerals that we know of. That means it's mostly empty space. The empty space is filled with water, some ammonium, oxalate, and other things. But mostly it's just really low density. Yes, Joe Marty. Yes. I lose names when I'm on spot. It's a super interesting mineral. In fact, I went out and collected bat guano, and I'm starting to work out how the reaction happens. What is the crystallization mechanisms of how you get that? Because one potential application is that it could be used for time-release fertilizers, because it does grow in bat guano, and so the bat guano, the ammonium, would leach out of the fauxite mineral, and feed the crops. But also you could put citrates and other things in it that would act as a natural pesticide to biting insects like locusts, because they don't like citrates. So some plants do produce citrate naturally as a natural pesticide. So there's all kinds of amazing applications for fauxite. We just need to know how it grows so we can synthesize it, because one level and one mine is not enough to extract out economically. Yeah.
So it hasn't been described in any other places?
Let's see. I don't think so. There might be one other place. If Tony's out there, he might see it. I was reading through, I write the new mineral names report in the American Mineralogist every couple months, and I thought I saw another locality, but Tony would know more because he's on the Commission of New Mineral Names. So he sees the stuff before I do. But I don't think so. I think it's the only locality.
Some people is asking how to write it. I think that's the right bauxite, right?
Yes,
it's okay.
Phosphorus oxalate-ite. That's where the name comes from.
You know, I really appreciate when they name it based either on the mine or the mineral name, but sometimes female researchers also need mineral names after them.
Yeah, I just wrote, there's Elenaite. There's a Russian mineralogist. She just got a mineral named after her.
Very cool.
Yeah, that just happened this year. Yeah.
Very nice. You know my pitch in there, Brian. Sorry, I always have to put it out there. So going back to the questions, we have one by Jeannie. So the lead bonds with the zeolites. So if people breathe or ingest the zeolites, does that mean that the lead is then not absorbed in the human body? What is the biological effect of zeolites in people and other living things?
That is correct. And we are still ongoing testing it under a variety of human body conditions. So we're testing it under synthetic kidney fluids. So if you do ingest it and it gets inside your body, your kidneys are eventually going to filter it out. If it gets in your bloodstream, your kidneys are going to filter it out. The pH of the kidneys is like around 6.3 to 6.5. It's a slightly acidic environment. So we are testing the zeolite under slightly acidic conditions to see how much lead is leached out. And it's not, even under like pH 1.5 to 2, we do not see any lead come out of the zeolite. So it's actually quite stable once the lead goes in. Now, I'm not exactly sure why that is. We're still doing some time resolve work to understand how the framework deforms around the lead. Because if you imagine the clinoptilolite holes are like football shaped. When the lead goes in, it goes into the center a little bit, kind of props open the holes a little bit. But then when more and more lead goes in, we see that it actually moves to the side, and then the hole kind of drops behind it. So it's kind of like a trap door a little bit, where the lead will go in to a certain percentage, and then the holes kind of collapse in behind it, so the lead can't easily come back out. So we're trying to understand that mechanism a little bit more, so that if we understand that mechanism more, maybe we can synthesize different types of zeolites for different metals and applications. Yeah, so if you do ingest it, you're fine. If you do breathe it in by accident, you're fine. The zeolite is stable. The lead is no longer bioaccessible. That was a long story, sorry.
No, it's very good, very good. Thank you. I love the visuals also, so that's really helpful. Brian?
Yeah.
Are you still there? You were so quiet.
No, I was listening. I was waiting for you to ask the next question.
There are no more Q&A questions, I think.
Good.
Is that it?
Yes, I think for now. But actually, there was a very active chat today. And I think let's steer a little bit the conversation is some of your labels, I'm talking about your labels, Aaron, some of your labels have tourmaline on them. where is the variety of elbaite. So it was the questions, when do you present it as a mineral group and not as a species? What are your take on there?
That's an ongoing debate between us here in mineral sciences and exhibits. So we have a whole exhibits department that does content writing, content development. They do surveys of visitors and things like that. I don't do that. So there's this conversation that we're having. It's like, what do we put on it? Is elbaite if we really know it's elbaite, then we'll put elbaite there. If we're not sure if it's a mixture between elbaite and rossmanite or something like that, then maybe tourmaline would be a more appropriate name to give on that. We're still on the fence. Like, where should we just call everything tourmaline, or should we be more specific if we know the variety? Like, everything should be called tourmaline, then put variety after it. It's nuanced. I love to have discussions about this. So if anybody has any really strong opinions about it, then yeah, let's talk.
I think Les has a strong opinion, but also he comes from the field of exhibits in competitions in Tucson. So that's one of the guidelines of writing the group and then the variety. But for example, we know some people will call rubellite as a variety, but it's not an accepted variety. But
right.
Everyone will call it rubellite. So exactly, it's all those nuances, and where do you find like the common ground? I remember when we were renaming our chlorides, and the chlorides these days, they have outrageous names. Right. So by the time you put the name on the label, you put the chemical formula, your locality, your donor, it was just so, sometimes you have to make a call from an exhibit point of view. Like you said, where do you put the line for the public to get, this is a chloride? They don't need to know exactly. So, yeah.
Exactly. It seems sort of simple. Like, why don't you just put it on there? But it's also, you want to make sure that the visitors that come in that have no scientific background whatsoever get something from it and don't feel totally overwhelmed. I think that's where the museum is different. And as you know, Raquel, I'm preaching to the choir here. Different than from like a university, where the university is like always trying to give you tons and tons of information, even in their exhibits. Where at a museum, you have to be more acceptable to a huge variety of backgrounds and education levels.
Great. Aaron, you got many compliments about your presentation and seeing the research that you do, many of us, and your exhibits. And so, yeah, many congrats. And thank you. That's it, Brian, for us.
That's it. Absolutely. Aaron, that was a fantastic interview. Thank you for spending the morning with us. I really enjoyed that. I love seeing the practical application of minerals into our world that could make it a better place for all of us. And so, I mean, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. So
thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Pleasure. So for all of you, that is our show for today. Tune in next month, first Wednesday of the month. We're going to have another great interview for you. Until then, take care. Be well. Mahalo.
Bye.
Aaron, that was awesome, dude. I love that.
Thank you. Oh, here's Charlie. He made an appearance now.
Woohoo! Hey, Charlie,
hello,
how you doing, buddy? That is my nephew, Charlie Nichols, and he will be hopefully coming to Tucson. That you guys will be able to see him at some of the shows. So, what shirt are you wearing there, Charlie?
An Ocean View hoodie.
Ocean View hoodie. Okay. Talk about Southern California locales.
Totally. That was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was dynamite. Aaron, thank you again so much.
Will we see you in Tucson?
What was that?
Will we see you in Tucson, Aaron?
Can you speak louder, Eloise?
She's asking.
I do plan on being in Tucson. I will be there.
Terrific.
Very good. Cool.